I recorded terrifying voices from the dark. You'll never believe what they told me. I never should have opened that door. It felt wrong, like I was about to unleash something I couldn't control. As I stood in my dimly lit hallway, my heart thundered in my chest. I glanced down, fingers trembling on the cold doorknob. I had heard things. Whispers. Distant echoes of words that didn't belong to this world. The air was thick, almost electric, charged with a warning I could almost taste on my tongue that my routine was simple. Coffee, a little Netflix, and the comforting hum of my apartment. But that evening was different. Shadows danced on the walls, twisting into figures I couldn't quite make out. A chill crawled up my spine. I shook it off, laughing nervously to myself. Just my imagination, right? Or was it? The darkness felt alive. It surrounded me, wrapping itself around my thoughts like a vice. I switched on the lights, but the glow barely dented the gloom. Suddenly, a crash echoed from the basement, something heavy hitting the floor. My breath caught. I froze. Was it just the cat? But Boots had been sitting on the windowsill, staring out into the nothingness that lay beyond our window. Then came the whispers again. Soft at first, shimmering like silk in the stillness. They pulled at my attention. I could almost make out words my name echoing back to me in a voice dripping with malice. My heart raced. I felt vomit rise in my throat. Had I been wrong to record those strange sounds the night before? Should I have let sleeping shadows lie? I picked up my phone, the screen illuminating the dark, sterile corners of the room. As I played the recording, I was met with a cacophony of grating sounds and eerie murmurs. My heart raced as I pressed the volume up. What was that? It sounded like laughter, but twisted, mocking. I climbed the walls of my sanity. Who was taunting me? Why? The hairs on my neck stood on end as the whispers grew louder, a chorus of disembodied voices swirling around me. I could feel my pulse quickening, fear slick and heavy coursing through my veins. The chill in the air intensified, almost suffocating. Suddenly, a loud bang jolted me. I gasped, clutching my phone as if it could protect me. Breathe, I whispered, but I was breathless. Shadows flitted in my peripheral vision, darting just out of focus like a terrible secret trying to reveal itself. Could I escape? I was paralyzed, glued to the spot, listening, fearing what I'd find if I ventured further into the darkness that wrapped itself like a predator waiting to strike. Then it happened. A figure emerged, its silhouette slicing through the shadows, darker than the night around it. I couldn't tell if it was real or just another figment of my fear. A scream caught in my throat, a cold terror wrapping around me like chains. My phone slipped from my hands, crashing to the floor with a shattering thud, the chilling laughter crescendoing into a deafening roar. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The laughter faded, but the echo of terror remained. I stood frozen as the figure merged with the shadows, unrelenting and impenetrable. Just a trick of the light, I told myself. Yet as the room dimmed further, dark shapes seemed to cling to the corners of the walls as if they had ambitions beyond the veil of reality. That I stumbled backward, feeling my way along the wallpaper, its texture rough beneath my fingers. The whispers had become a torrent now, drowning out my thoughts, invading my mind, and burrowing into my psyche. You shouldn't have listened. The words slithered into my consciousness, thick with venom. My sanity hung by a thread, fraying with every breath. Desperately, I sought for Boots, to reconnect with a shred of normality, some semblance of comfort in that infuriating hush. Boots? I whispered, my voice trembling. Where are you? But only silence answered, pregnant and suffocating. below me, the basement door cracked open just a sliver, blue-black darkness spilling into the hall like ink. I could hear movement from within, the sound of scratching, like claws against the concrete. The air was thick with an odor so foul it made me gag, a stench of decay looming ominously from the depths. Against my better judgment, I felt a pull, a compulsion to investigate. It felt as if the shadows themselves urged me forward, coaxing my resignation. I took a step, and then another, as icy fingers beckoned me into their embrace. The basement loomed before me, a yawning maw ready to swallow whatever remained of my sense. As I reached the door, the whispers sharpened, each syllable tinged with malice, "Join us." Pushing the door wider, I stepped into the darkness below, the pallor of my phone's light barely permeating the oppressive shadows. An overwhelming dread clawed at my throat. This part of my house felt alien, as if it had been infused with the essence of nightmares. The first thing that struck me was the silence. The scratching had stopped. My heart drummed against my ribs, each beat amplifying the dread that coursed through my blood. I took a step, and the floor groaned beneath me, an eerie protest to my intrusion. I continued onward, following the twists and turns of the corridor down, the darkness thickening until it felt like a living entity wrapping its tendrils around my mind. Something flickered at the edge of my light, a glimmer, a reflection. My pulse quickened as I drew closer, and I shone the light directly at it. It was a mirror, cracked and tarnished. My reflection stared back, but it was wrong, distorted, twisted. Horror crept beneath my skin as the face in the glass grinned wide, its eyes dark pits of empty malevolence. I stumbled back, but it didn't stop there. It spoke. My voice, yet alien, "You called for us." Panic seized my throat, and I turned to flee, but something yanked at my ankle. A hand, cold and clammy, gripped me with the force of desperation, dragging me toward the black depths beneath. I kicked and flailed, adrenaline fueling my fight-or-flight instinct, but the grip tightened with an otherworldly strength. As I gasped for breath, the presence loomed in the shadows, creaking like ancient wood, mirroring my every move. "Stop struggling," it hissed, in my voice yet tainted. "You're one of us now." With a final, feral scream, I felt myself slip into the crushing void, the darkness consuming me whole. Just before hitting the ground, I was jolted awake. I bolted upright in my room, drenched in sweat. The comfort of familiarity wrapped around me, but then I noticed a faint scratching at the basement door, punctuated by a whisper that chilled the very marrow of my bones. "You belong to us and we're coming for you." Fear seized my body as I turned to the mirror across the room. My reflection stared back, but the eyes, they were not my own. The room was thick with the smell of old fear, each breath pulling me deeper into a chasm of memories I wished to forget. I jerked my head toward the mirror again, searching for some sign of reality in the glassy surface. My reflection shimmered, that haunting gaze locked onto mine, a silent confirmation that the darkness had indeed slithered into my being. It was not just a figment of dread, it was real, and it was awake. The scratching at the basement door intensified, a torturous sound, like fingernails scraping against the wood in a frenzied attempt to break free. I stumbled from my bed, the weight of my own impulses pulling me toward it. "Stay away," I whispered, but the words felt meaningless, lost in the echo of the unseen. Disoriented, I crept toward the door, the floor creaking under my hesitant weight. Each step sent a jolt through the silence that enveloped the house. I could feel the shadows smothering me, twisting and coiling around my ankles like serpents waiting to strike. The whispers grew louder, their melody now a cacophony. "Join us, be one with us." Suddenly, I felt a deep rumble resonate from the basement, a sound that reverberated through my bones, igniting a primal fear that begged me to flee. I knew I should run. But something held me, an irresistible curiosity mingled with dread, as I felt the unseen force reaching for me, luring me closer. I bowed my head, steeling myself against the insistent calls echoing in my mind. "What do you want?" I cried out, voice trembling. The scratching stopped, and for a moment, a beat of silence enveloped me, held together by a thread of tension, and then laughter. A cacophony of myriad voices erupted from below, resonating through the house, malicious and raw. Each laugh twisted into a mockery of joy, sending chills racing down my spine. I staggered back, and as I did, the darkness in the room pulsed, almost vibrating with energy, as if drawing strength from my fear. Suddenly, my phone buzzed to life on my nightstand. The screen flickered, illuminating the darkness just enough for me to catch a glimpse of my reflection one final time. It grinned at me, an expression I did not know, and then the reflection burst into a hysterical laugh that echoed through the air. I had no time to question it, as a crash from the basement drowned out everything. Like a curtain torn aside, the basement door burst open, a wave of stale, damp air rushing up the stairs, accompanied by an ominous figure emerging from the shadows. Silhouetted against the barely flickering light of my phone, it was a mass of formless blackness, eyes small and glaring, yearning for connection yet exuding utter malevolence. The ground beneath it cracked as it moved, a noise like bones snapping filling the space around me. As if in a trance, I stepped forward, drawn by the inevitable, each pulse of dread throbbing through me, urging me onward. It was at this moment that the figure stretched out a hand, all claws and darkness, the edges fragmenting into tendrils that beckoned me closer. "Come, join us," it rasped, voice scaling into a tormented rhythm, heart hammering. I knew I had to respond. Terror coursed through each vein. I desperately shielded my eyes from its glare and yanked the door closed, locking it tight in an instinctive act of survival. The weight of the moment hung heavy in the air, but I knew this wasn't the end. Suddenly, there was another surge, a violent rattle at the door that sent shockwaves through the house. The whispers returned, louder, more frantic, twisting around my thoughts until clarity slipped away completely. My phone flickered again, but this time it wasn't the reflection I feared. I turned, horrified, as I saw my own self, trapped behind the mirror, banging against the glass, face twisted in anguish. Then came the final, gut-wrenching ultimatum: you will choose. You will join us, willingly or not. As the basement door shuddered violently and the laughter crescendoed, I realized my only escape was slipping through the very cracks of my own mind. And in that moment, the ground below opened. Up, a darkness deeper than I had ever known, swallowing me whole. Just as I fell, a terrifying thought clawed its way to the surface: would I emerge unscathed, or would I be forever trapped like the reflection that screamed for help? I plunged deep into an abyss that seemed to stretch eternally, the sensation of weightlessness wrapping me like a shroud. My breath quickened, but the silence enveloping me was maddening, thick as the fears I had known. Shapes began to swirl around me, a distorted kaleidoscope of memories and nightmares, intertwining until I was uncertain where one ended and the other began. Suddenly, I landed harshly on a cold, stone floor, the impact rattling my bones and jolting me awake. A dim blue light flickered overhead, casting elongated shadows that danced like phantoms against the walls. I could smell something fetid in the air, a mix of decay and something far worse, desperation that clawed at my throat as I gasped for sanity. With shaking hands, I pushed myself to my feet, only to find myself trapped in what appeared to be a vast, underground chamber, walls lined with grotesque symbols pulsating with an unnatural life. Each glyph seemed to writhe under my gaze, an invitation to the unholy knowledge buried in their depths. In the center of the room lay an altar, slick with what looked like fresh blood, a dark promise lingering in the air. The whispers returned, merging into a singular, piercing voice that dripped with malice. You cannot escape. You belong to us now. Each syllable was a dagger, stinging with the familiarity of old fears. The walls vibrated with their laughter, harmonizing into a symphony of despair that threatened to swallow me whole. Once more did I turn to run, urging my feet to cooperate. But the shadows seized my limbs, dragging at me as if they had grown roots beneath my skin. I could feel them burrowing deeper, feeding on the terror coursing through my veins. The ground shifted beneath me, transforming into a writhing mass of faces twisted in agony, the souls of those who had come before me, caught in a web of torment I dared not touch. A yowling sound erupted from the far corner of the chamber, displacing the whispers momentarily. Something emerged from the Hazian amalgamation of legs and hollow eyes, a creature seemingly made of darkness stitched together with threads of despair. It lunged forward, snapping its maw wide, and I saw within it an endless abyss that echoed the promises of the figures I had glimpsed in my nightmares. That I stumbled backward, my heart gushing with mortification as I tried to shield myself with feeble hands. Please, I just want to leave. I cried, voice shaking with an imploring desperation. But the creature twisted its head with a sickening crack, a macabre mockery of sympathy. It let out a malicious howl that reverberated within the chamber, drowning out rational thought and replacing it with primal terror. In a moment of dread-fueled resolve, I bolted toward the altar, hoping to utilize whatever dark force rested upon its surface. As I reached out, the air around me thickened, pressing down on my chest like the weight of the world. My fingers grazed the surface, sending a pulse of energy through my entire being. Glancing at the symbols on the walls, I saw a vague pattern form, a connection that danced on the edge of my understanding, and then came the screams. Not just the whispers but a legion of tortured souls, unbound and furious, flooding my senses. Images of their brutal demise crashed into my blades cutting through flesh, hollow eyes gazing into nothing, lives extinguished before they could even know despair. I buckled under the weight of their anguish, hearing my own name among their cries. Let us in. Set us free. It was mostly my own voice, twisted and tortured, pleading for the release that had eluded them. I spun away from the altar, racing towards what I perceived as a potential exit, a faint light flickering in the distance like a beacon of hope. The sounds grew closer, a legion of shadows hot on my trail, the laughter reaching a fever pitch as they pounced, claws scraping against the stone like the Last Judgment wrapping around me. Then came the realization, a split-second decision with the weight of eternity in it. I understood I had a choice, to commune with that which I had once feared or to surrender myself to the wretched abyss. Did I possess the strength to embrace darkness, or had it already become an indelible part of me? And just as I reached the light, I was yanked back into a whirlpool of screams and laughter. The walls closed in, and in the horrifying chaos, I blurted out a bargain I had only dreamed of fulfilling: I will help you. Just let me go. In an instant, the chamber darkened, the malicious figures swirling around me erupting into a cacophonous roar, drowning my senses in a tempest of raw emotion. Too late. They howled. Your fate is sealed. As the shadows enveloped me in a shroud of laughter and despair, the faint light I had spotted flickered out, leaving me in overwhelming, suffocating blackness. And then, without warning, a single sharp voice cut through the darkness. Now, we will begin. That was when I truly understood I had not just entered their domain, I had become a vessel to their insatiable hunger. The suffocating blackness twisted around me, a living thing writhing with furious intent. The air grew colder, as if the very essence of despair was leaking into the chamber, clutching at my throat and constricting my breaths. I felt the dark figures coalescing around me, their intangible forms brushing against my skin like a stinging chill. I wanted to scream, but the terror sealed my mouth shut, rendering me a mute spectator to my own damnation. Awaken, awaken, sputtered the disembodied voice that had originally mocked me. It echoed, repeating like a chant that burrowed into my mind, refusing to be ignored. You wanted to help. You wanted to see their truth. Now, witness what you have unleashed. With a sharp intake of breath, I felt the world around me pulse and then collapse, collapsing into fragments of reality. The shadows peeled away, revealing something grotesque and magnificent, a swirling vortex of lost souls, each one distinct yet not wholly separate. Faces emerged from the chaos, mouths agape, their silent screams imploring me for understanding. Each face morphed, the anguish morphing into the agony of betrayal, of secrets unearthed, and twisted fates sealed by their own decisions. I stumbled forward instinctively, my heart pounding against my ribcage, trying to comprehend the web of pain before me. What do you want from me? I pleaded, desperation spilling over as I searched their haunted eyes for a clue, an inkling of hope to cling to. The darkness rippled, and a figure stepped out from the maelstrom, tall, gaunt, and almost regal in its bearing. Its eyes glimmered with a mix of pity and hunger that sent waves of nausea crashing over me. You came here seeking answers, it crooned with a voice like silk, and now you will learn how they truly died. Before I could protest, the scene shifted abruptly. I was thrust into visions of carnage and desperation. Flashes of violence erupted before me like fireworks on a pitch-black night. Each memory was a shard of a haunted past, sewing together tales of betrayal, jealousy, and revenge. A woman clutched her throat, her pleading eyes turned toward the sky as shadows swallowed her whole. A child's laughter echoed, only to rapidly dissolve into horrified cries as darkness snuffed it out. "Don't you see?" The figure continued, draping an arm across my shoulder with a mockingly compassionate gesture. "Their stories live through you now. Your downfall is the culmination of their torment, you are the vessel we have been waiting for." I staggered back, quickening my breath in a fruitless attempt to dispel the images that raced through my conscience. No. This was never what I wanted. My denial rang hollow against the infernal laughter that swirled around me, the shadows vibrating with glee, the symphony of despair unmistakable. "Yet here you are, cradling their essence within you," the voice sang. "You have awakened them, and soon they shall rise through you. You must embrace the darkness if you wish to break the cycle." Just as the world felt poised to unravel completely, reality teetered on the brink of an entirely new manifestation. I felt the warm pulse of something sinister growing inside me, a heartbeat that resonated with the agonized wails of the souls trapped in this hell. I could feel their pain seeping through my skin, merging with mine until the agony became indistinguishable from my own. Suddenly, from the shadows, a shape emerged, a child, no older than 7, eyes wide and pleading, a contingency of hope in this realm of despair. "Help me," it whispered, the words a somber melody against the backdrop of chaos. "Don't let them use you. You can stop this." The shadows recoiled with a wrathful hiss, their laughter becoming a discordant shriek, drowning out the child's gentle plea. "You are theirs now," they screamed. "You cannot turn back." The connection to the child flickered as the darkness raged, angered by the glimmer of hope forged in the face of despair. Time itself warped around me, pulling tighter than a noose, every heartbeat echoing with power, each revelation drenched in horror. I felt like a marionette on the edge of a blade, teetering between the salvation offered by the child and the abyss threatening to consume me. In that moment of terrible realization, I saw the child's anguished face reflected in the millions of twisted shadows that surrounded us. My mind snapped from revelation to understanding. I had become part of the darkness that ruled here, a pawn in a game far beyond my comprehension. The laughter peaked, a cacophony that threatened to fracture my very essence, when the child's voice cut through the pandemonium with resounding clarity. "If you don't help me, you will never escape," it implored, and in my heart, I felt the chilling touch of an impossibly hard truth, a truth that resonated deep within the marrow of my bones. And then it happened, the shadows lunged, bursting forth like an avalanche, sweeping me into an inescapable tide of agony and blind terror. The bond with the child wrestled against their onslaught, but I felt myself slipping away, spiraling, merging into that abyss of darkness and despair, and just before I surrendered to the pull, another fragment of Lithia, fragmented voice that sounded too much like my own echoed through my mind. "If you join them entirely, you will never find me again." The room erupted in wild chaos as everything fell apart, and for the briefest instant, I thought I saw light. A possibility flickered in the darkness, and I lunged for it. But at that moment, everything stilled as time fractured, suspending me mid-fall. I found myself face to face with the gaunt figure once more. "Will you make your choice?" it asked, glee spinning chaos into my already unraveled mind, leaving me teetering on the edge of both worlds, the pull of the darkness as consuming as my urge to save the child. As the waves of shadows pushed into me like a fierce tide, an echo churned within my subconscious, the voices growing louder and more desperate. "Choose. Choose." And as the shadows seized me yet again, a light, sharp and blinding, erupted from the heart of the chamber, reverberating through the souls, and my heart pounded furiously at a truth I knew too well yet was not prepared to face. Choose or be chosen. With that, the world shifted violently, and I felt myself plunging downward, caught within a storm of souls, choices, and darkness that threatened to consume me entirely. The finality of my fate approached, an inescapable truth that left me yearning to know which choice would seal the child or the abyss, and whether my choice could ever redeem what I had inadvertently unleashed. The darkness roared, a throaty growl that reverberated through the fractured space as I tumbled towards oblivion. My instincts screamed for survival, yet all I could hear was a haunting cacophony of anguished wails intermingling with a sinister, mocking laughter that dripped like poison into my veins. The faces from the vortex pulsed with renewed fury, looming closer as if to claim yet another doomed soul. Choose. The gaunt figure hissed, its eyes gleaming with a malevolent fire, the brimstone of its breath curling like wisps of fog. Your indecision will doom you. I felt the child's spirit flickering in the corner of my mind, a light desperately fighting against an overwhelming surge of darkness. You have to fight. You can't let them win. The child cried, its voice strangled with fear yet anchored by determination. It felt like a tether in this chaotic storm, urging me to stand firm against the chilling torrent that threatened to envelop me. Desperation clawed at my throat as I reached out, struggling to maintain my grip on the child's essence amidst the swirling shadows. Was I truly falling deeper into their grasp, or was there still a chance to save the innocent soul that lingered on the periphery of my consciousness? I heard whispers surrounding me, low and insidious. Join us. Embrace the void, they crooned, each syllable like daggers slipping into my mind. Spectral hands shot out from the shadows, grasping at my limbs, pulling me towards the vibrant darkness that beckoned with false promises. Hot rivulets of dread seared through my core as I recalled the faces of those who had vanished into despair, their cold eyes urging me to understand what was at stake. Stop. I screamed, a raw, despairing plea that echoed back at me in a derisive taunt. I won't become like you. For a heartbeat, silence enveloped me, a stillness that felt like the cold breath before a storm. But the silence was only a trick. Darkness swelled, tightening its grip around me. I braced myself, feeling every inch of my resolve waver, and as the shadows pulsed, I caught a fleeting glimpse of the child, eyes wide and pleading. If you choose me, we can expose them, the child insisted, desperation sharpening its tone. I promise you together we can break free. But the darkness laughed in raucous delight. There is no escape, little one. You are tethered to this fate. The twisted forms swirled around me, the malice coursing through their existence thrumming like a heartbeat that matched my own. In a moment of sheer defiance, I allowed my anger to rise, overflowing into a surge of determination. They thought me weak, just another soul to coalesce into their insatiable hunger. But I had been granted a glimpse of a different path, the child's light lingering, unyielding. Crazy notions surged through me, pairing with what was already dwindling within, and suddenly I remembered the candor wrapped in the warmth of the child's touch. Together, I whispered fiercely, my words cutting through the dark as if wielding a blasphemy, choice making itself, reality coalescing around the threads of fate. I uncoiled my limbs and turned my focus inward, me heart racing, teetering on the edge of liberation and despair. As if sensing the shift, the shadows recoiled momentarily, uncertainty dancing across their malevolent visages. Foolish child! They shrieked, their voices a tumultuous wave. This will only lead to your demise, but I refuse to let that fear drown out the flicker of hope ignited by the child's bravery. We surged together, a rallying cry against the tide, and as our spirits intertwined, light exploded in every direction as the darkness screeched in agony. I felt a rush of power surge as the shadows began to dissipate under a force unimaginable, the resonance of good and evil colliding in an age-old battle. Each blast consumed the darkness, yet waves of torment surged in response, clawing at the edges of my consciousness, desperate to reclaim what they believed was theirs. We are stronger. I called into the abyss, my words breaking free into an unyielding scream that echoed like thunder. It shook the foundation of everything, an indomitable truth ricocheting through the chaos until something shifted, something grew palpable and real. In an unforeseen moment, the floor beneath me fractured, splintering open as though the very ground were rebelling against the dark. The vortex surged one last time, a swirling tempest of shadows ready to reclaim their prey. But even as the abyss hungrily lurched forward, surreal images began to ripple across the space, showing whispers of lives long lost, each beckoning me, urging me to stay focused. My truth, our truth, the spirits pleaded, their garments of anguish fraying with desperation, and then, just as I thought clarity would finally descend, I heard a low, guttural growl. From the depths of the dark surged a creature unlike any I had witnessed before, weaving through shadows like a specter of despair. Its eyes gleamed with malevolence, locking onto me with an insatiable hunger. Your choice, it hissed, each word dripping with venom. You have chosen to defy us. You are not yet worthy, and with that, a horrific truth shattered my remaining resolve. I felt the chains of despair binding me tighten, as if every forsaken soul was screaming now this was not simply a choice between salvation or oblivion. There was something greater at stake, a hidden path I had yet to discover, an answer that would thwart not only the darkness I had faced but the unfathomable horrors that awaited if I failed. Just as its clawed shadow lunged toward me, I glimpsed the child's face once more, fading yet steadfast, urging me to act. And in that heartbeat, I realized the only sound louder than the echoes of the residual darkness was the distant thud of something subterraneous arriving. Before I could brace myself, everything erupted into chaos. The haunting laughter of the unreachable shadows broke into silence as the very fabric of reality began to splinter, and at the center of the storm, the child's piercing gaze would become my only chance of survival or doom, tethered forever to the unfathomable choices these sinister depths offered. The creature descended upon me, its mouth agape, ready to consume me whole when I saw the light flicker, so close yet so far, and a wordless cry escaped my lungs, choked by the dissonance that locked me in terror. Choose but understand, it may cost you everything. The power that surged around me felt final, the import of my next move unfurling like the wings of a Ravenna prelude to an inevitable, terrifying conclusion. Would I find the strength within to resist the all-consuming night? Or would I instead spiral down a path of irrevocable darkness, forever regretting the choice made in desperation? And as I felt the shadows encroach, dimly aware of the price already laid before me, the ground beneath trembled, drawing the horror closer. Either path would lead me deeper into the abyss, but only one had the chance to lead me back to the light, or so I hoped, as dread clawed at my insides, a grasp from which I could not escape. The air thickened, suffocating under the weight of the darkness as I stood at the precipice of choice. Around me, the world began to shift, the colors fading into a muted gray, a prelude to the nightmare that threatened to consume me entirely. The child's presence flickered like a candle caught in a tempest waning, yet still steadfast in its plea. Fight! You can't let them take you or me. It implored, urgency lacing its voice, like a chant against impending doom. Before I could reply, the creature lunged, its silhouette unfurling into a grotesque presence of twisted shapes and writhing forms, each claw designed to tear flesh from bone, each movement an echo of the very souls it had devoured. Its maw stretched impossibly wide, revealing rows of jagged teeth that glistened with the remnants of lost lives. I realized then the horror wasn't in its appearance, but in what it represented, the insatiable hunger for despair, the consuming madness that sought to extinguish any flicker of hope. Run! The child urged, and before reason could catch up with instinct, I turned, sprinting into the dark void from whence I had been displaced. But the shadows chased me, angry whispers swelling in their wake, gaining on my heels as I dashed, my pulse a frantic drumbeat of fear. I navigated the swirling vortex, aware every moment was a taunt, a sick game orchestrated by unseen forces intent on dragging me back. I could hear the disembodied laughs ringing ominously, flourishing in my terror, filling the air with an unholy, feverish frenzy, a symphony composed of despair. Amidst the chaos, I stumbled upon an alcove, a sliver of forgotten light, glowing dimly at the far side. I raced towards it, desperation propelling me forward, but the ground seemed to jolt, sending tremors through my legs, and shadows snaked up from the edges of the abyss, licking at my ankles that I felt the claws of dread scrape against my skin, and in that flash of uncertainty, the ground within the alcove shattered, a rending sound, earth splitting open before me as I hurtled towards the gnashing maw of the void. Just before I fell, the flickering light surged, pulling me back like a lifeline through the chaos. Do not give in. The child screamed. You can break the cycle. Find the truth. The illumination coalesced into a vision, vivid against the bleakness. I gasped, snapshots of memories unspooling, people faces once familiar, lost now stretching across the realm, eyes wide with sorrow, mouths moving in silent screams. Each visage blotted out another, distinct yet shared in their horror, bound together by a thread that twisted through time and despair. Remember us. Echoed their silent cries. Do not let the darkness win. Suddenly, tendrils surged from the mass of shadows, grasping toward me, slithering and coiling around my wrists, pulling me closer to the haunting laughter erupting from the creature, a sound that echoed with the cries of all it had consumed. I fought against the onslaught with furious resolve, channeling the energy of the child, focusing on the desperate spirit that had intertwined with my own. With every ounce of strength, I pulled myself back, using the crest of the ethereal light as a shield, a bastion of hope against the grasping claws of despair. Together, I roared, but with the word came an intense flash of pain, an electrocuting sensation that coursed through my veins. The creature reeled, struck by the force of my defiance, but I knew it was a temporary victory. Its bellow echoed through the space, punctuated by a chilling threat. You think you can escape this? You are enthralled by your own weakness, a shadow of your true self. To prove its point, the darkness rippled and twisted violently, revealing even more grotesque manifestations that surged for the chaotic legion of despair intent on reclaiming their lost prize. Faces I recognized blended with terrifying visages I had never seen, every ghostly form caught in a wretched eternal struggle, their own chains binding them to the darkness. In desperation, I turned my focus inward, breathing through the panic, trying to grasp the child's spirit tighter with every chaotic pulse of the darkness around me. What do I need to do? Show me. I shouted, my voice swallowed by the eerie cacophony, but instead of a response, a stark realization hit me like a freight train. My grip on the child's spirit was fading, a tether snapping as shadows burrowed deeper into my mind, inviting me to join their ranks. The laughter grew louder, more derisive. Each echo was a promise. They would not let me go without a cost, and then, with an otherworldly screech, the creature lunged once more, breaking through the veil of my thoughts, claws outstretched with unnatural speed. I had only an instant to react. Instinct kicked in as I twisted, sending a plea into the ether, I will not let them win. I choose light. The reverberation of my voice pierced through the darkness, a wave of energy emanating from me, pushing against the creatures, sending them scattering temporarily. But still, the power that enveloped me began to wane, the remnants of resistance slipping away, leaving me open for one final, desperate push. In that moment, I caught a glimpse of despair, a chilling swirl that draped itself around my mind like a winter's shroud, whispering of forgotten promises and scornful truths. And amidst it all, I beheld the things I had left unsaid, the weight of my own unaddressed fears wrapping around my heart. They would consume me unless I acted, but before I could voice my final resolve, the ground beneath fractured violently as the creature rejoined the fray, thrashing forward, closer now than ever before. In that horrific instant, I realized I had to confront my own darkness, my own fears embodied in this ravenous beast, its enormity a reflection of everything I feared losing if I truly hoped to reclaim my tether to the child's spirit and escape this living nightmare. But as I faced the creature, the wailing chorus behind it fell silent, a suffocating quiet descending as all around me closed in. The child's light flickered perilously, teetering on the brink of extinguishment. And then I heard Ida whisper that seemed to crawl right out of the very walls of despair, do you see? There's no such thing as freedom here. You're only encouraging your own demise. The shadows surged, a tidal wave of blackness waiting for my next move, ready to swallow all that I had fought for. Then, with a final plea stirring deep within me, I felt the warmth of the child's spirit cling tighter, an embrace both reassuring and feral, as a final, gut-wrenching choice unfolded before me, a moment of clarity amid chaos that would solidify my fate. The truth or the abyss? Only one would remain. As the creature lunged, its grotesque form twisting through the air toward me, I felt the breath of despair exhale cold against my skin. Focusing on the flickering light that hinted at the child's spirit, I pushed against the pull of the abyss, feeling too aware of my own heartbeat, thumping louder than any drum, drowning out the sinister lullabies wafting through the shadows. Every inch closer to the creature felt like a plunge into ice water. The edges of reality fractured. I gasped, the air around me thickening as if it were solid, wrapping around my throat, a reminder of the small space I occupied, and the tremendous void that surrounded me. Behind the creature, shadowy forms merged and separated, writhing as they beckoned me closer, their whispers filled with promises of despair. They were lost beings, their faces slack with the weight of sorrow, their eyes mirroring my own inner conflicts. Choose, the creature growled, its voice a twisted echo that reverberated with the darkness. Choose to embrace the inevitable. You do not have the strength to break the chains of the past. I closed my eyes for just a moment, trying to shut out the cacophony of despair, searching for the child's presence in the crushing darkness. Please. Help me! I cried, my voice raw and ragged in the oppressive silence that followed. But what followed was not her voice or comfort, it was the sound of laughter mingled with cries, a massacre of hope. The souls around me danced like marionettes, their strings pulled by the creature's insatiable hunger. Open your eyes, I told myself. I fought to gather whatever vestige of courage remained. With fists clenched and heart racing, I let out a furious shout against the encroaching shadows. No! I refuse to let you take me. Using every ounce of resolve, I summoned strength from the flickering light, channeling it against the weight of the darkness. A radiant burst erupted, momentarily illuminating the terrain, bustling life into the spectral forms. They reacted, their movement a jarring reflection against my defiance. But as the silence shattered, I understood something far more chilling. Like an undercurrent that surged beneath my resistance. Listening to their silent cries, I saw the truth of my fear staring back at me. The child's light, once bright, began to sputter like a failing flame, and despair twisted within my chest. Fight! I shouted again, but the child's flicker became a hesitant blink, faltering in the same shadows that sought to claim me. I felt the tether begin to thin, a gossamer thread stretching perilously towards the creature's waiting maw. One last sweep of clarity hit me. Every anguished face around me bore witness to the weight of unresolved grief, their frozen expressions pleading for release. These were not mere phantoms, they were reflections of my own repressed truths, burdens I had sought to bury deep within the dark recesses of my mind. I had to face them, to confront the very pain I was so desperate to escape. Damn you! I screamed at the creature, its claws now inches from my face, blackened and sharp. You are no more than a reflection of my own darkness. Surging forward, I plunged my fists into the creature's maw, driven by a fleeting instinct, fury entwined with desperation as I grasped the damp, choking tendril that kept tightening around my throat. But as my fingers sank deeper, a horrifying anomaly assailed my senses. The very moment I made contact, thousands of whispers erupted from the abyss, filling the air with their chilling revelations, each one a memory lost to time, a regret suspended in the tempest of shadow. We trusted you, they cried, a symphony of accusation clamoring over each other. You've abandoned us. I felt the ground slip beneath me once more, dragging me down into their wretched embrace. The laughter of the creature intermingled with these memories, the lives I had left behind, the people I had failed. It became evident that turning to face them didn't just mean acknowledging their grief, it became a trial, forcing me deeper into the labyrinth of sorrow that had buried itself within my heart. And then suddenly, through the maelstrom of shadows, a jagged light burst forth, swollen and fractured as though it wanted to emerge but faced constant opposition. It was a sharp juxtaposition against the murky blackness, a blinding reminder of everything I yearned to reclaim but had lost. Find the truth. I could hear the child's voice weaving through my mind, clearer now amidst the chaos, urging me to seek something deeper. Suddenly I understood the creature wasn't merely my fear, it was a manifestation of everything I had chosen to ignore, everything suffocated by my reluctance to acknowledge the truth. But time slipped, shifting underfoot as the creature reeled back, its jagged mouth opening wider than ever, ready to consume all that I held dear, all that I was, and everything I hoped to reclaim. The tempests rose as darkness threatened to drown me, dread coiling around my heart like the tightening grip of despair just as the creature plunged forward, its mouth gaping wide, ready to erase what little light remained. And then I saw it, a solitary figure emerging from the shadows behind the creature, clad in outlines of lingering despair, a forgotten spectre threatening to reshape everything I thought I knew, everything I had fought for. The familiar silhouette gave pause to every scream of hope echoing in my mind, a face I had never anticipated, bound in sorrow, formed from my greatest fears realized. Before I could even comprehend the enormity of this new revelation or react, the air swirled violently, and as the darkness closed in, I was left standing at the edge of revelation itself, a terrifying brink that would either lead to my salvation or my annihilation. Will you choose to remember? The familiar figure whispered, their eyes glinting with unfathomable sorrow and despair, as shadows draped around them like a heavy veil of loss. The choice hung in the air, a question fraught with uncertainty, just as the darkness surged forward to consume us both. The world around me vibrated with an unseen force, an electric shiver coursing through the air as the familiar figure took a hesitant step closer, revealing the contours of a face frozen in a perpetual state of mourning, a haunting recognition that crashed against my consciousness. Their voice was a haunting melody, familiar yet twisted, echoing through the landscape of my recollections. Do you remember what you've forgotten? They urged, their arms outstretched, palms open in a gesture of both invitation and despair, as if offering me the chance to confront the past I had willfully buried. The creature paused, its grotesque form undulating, vibrating against the stark contrast of the figure radiating sorrow. In that moment, the shadows twisted and writhed with a hungry anticipation, their whispers growing like a tempest of tortured screams, clamoring for release. Choose, the creature echoed, its voice an inescapable weight pressing down on my soul that I struggled to swallow, feeling the depth of truth in the familiar specter's gaze. It was woven with loss but tempered by an unyielding resilience the kind forged from the fires of despair. I felt my pulse quicken as fractured memories began to cascade, each fragment jagged and sharp. Faces flickered into my mind, loved ones abandoned, moments lost to time, the remnants of joy now entangled with grief. Who are you? I croaked, wrestling against the swell of emotions that threatened to spill over. I am everything you've resisted. I am the shadow that remains when you run, they replied, their voice a serpentine whisper that coiled around the fabric of my existence, tightening ever so slowly. Choose to remember, or remain forever in this void. In that moment, the creature surged forward, its maw gaping, shadowy tendrils reaching toward me with an insatiable hunger. I heard the cacophony of whispers growing louder, a crescendo of anguish crashing violently against the fragile holds of my sanity. The air thickened around us, suffocating, raw as if the walls of this dark realm closed in, threatening to devour my very essence. Help me! I screamed, the word tearing from my throat as I instinctively took a step back, trying to escape the darkness swirling around. It felt as if I was teetering on the precipice of the unfathomable. Remember. The figure's voice quaked with an urgency that stung, their face twisting with what felt like a shared pain. The shadows encroached around us, wrapping around our feet like creeping vines, and I felt the ground shift beneath me. Name your fears, acknowledge your pain. Only then will you be free. Reality morphed as flashes of my past surged forth, moments tinted in shades of regret, choices that had spiraled into irrevocable consequences. I saw my mother's face, pale and tear-streaked, lost to sorrow the day I chose solitude over connection. My father standing at the doorway, longing mixed with resignation, as I had turned away from his outstretched hand. No. I cried, shaking my head furiously, desperate to suppress the weight of the truth as the memories clawed at me, sinking deep into the marrow of my soul. Stop, but it's already begun, the shadowy figure whispered, their voice becoming a tether that pulled me deeper into initiation, a frightening juxtaposition of comfort and horror as I felt again the embrace of loss, the pull of desperation that defined my existence. The creature lunged once more, its form a rush of chaos and rage, but this time, it was met with the shimmering light of something deep within me. That glimpse of hope surged, tantalizing, just beneath the layers of grief. Remember. It's time to let go. The figure urged, their eyes shimmering with a strange light. Only then can you push the darkness away. Only then can we break the cycle. As the creature descended, its breath stank of decay and despair, I felt my resolve splintering, too scattered to maintain focus. The ground beneath me erupted, and with a wild motion of my arms, I thrust toward the creature. I didn't know whether I was fighting for survival or surrender. For as the shadows clawed their way towards my heart, time fractured, each second stretched into an eternity of torment. Are you ready to face it? The familiar specter questioned, their intense gaze searching mine, first haunting, then igniting a flicker of understanding. Embrace the light of truth, or drown in the depths of your own darkness. A gnarled claw swiped through the air, brushing against my cheek, cold as regret. I felt the icy tendrils wrapping tighter around my throat and neck, the pressure mounting. The creature's laughter echoed, rich tones swirling around me like smoke, sickly sweet yet bitter. In that horrific moment, the figure began to fade, their countenance blurring with each passing second, leaving only shadows behind. You must decide. They cried, their voice warping into a cacophony of despair. No. I screamed, as I wrestled against an unseen force threatening to pull me into an abyss of darkness. I choose, but the words fell silent in my mouth as I was swept off my feet, spiraled backward into the cursed depths of the creature's maw. The last thing I saw before everything around me dissolved into darkness was the figure's desperate look, their mouth opening to scream a warning I couldn't comprehend, and then, all at once, the world went black, leaving me suspended in a void, my fate suspended between the choices I had made and those I feared to acknowledge, lost between desire and atrocity as the whispers surged around me, growing louder. Implementation carrying a final question: will you dare to remember? The void pulsed in response, resonating with an energy of untold horrors about to unfold. I awoke, but not in the same dimension I had known. The air was still heavy, thick with the lingering whispers of lost souls, and the sharpened edge of despair seemed to press against my chest, squeezing with every breath I took. Around me, darkness enveloped everything, an amorphous shape that felt dangerously sentient. I realized I was not alone. There were shadows, hundreds, maybe thousands of them, littering the ground like fallen leaves. No, I whispered, barely more than a breath, this cannot be happening. The darkness shifted, coiling like smoke, wrapping around my ankles. The shadows seemed to pulse with energy, vibrating with a sinister rhythm in time with my panicked heartbeat. I stumbled back, kicking against the unseen hands that sought to pull me deeper. The laughter of those once lost chased after me, growing louder, rising higher, morphing into a cacophony of mournful cries, taunting me. Choose. They screamed, a medley of anguished voices blending into one, sharp and relentless, a haunting reminder of the truth I had denied. I spun around, expecting to find familiar faces in the gloom, drawn by those desperate whispers. Still, it was only darkness taunting me, playing with my mind. What do you want from me? I cried, my voice shattering against the walls of this void, but I didn't wait for an answer. I turned, sprinting towards the flicker of diminished light that I had first seen when I fell into this realm of shadows. With every step, memories flooded my mind, visions of my life unspooled before me like an old film, rituals I had once cherished bursting forth in flowers of grief, and a pungent smell of decay that slapped me back to reality. I saw my childhood pet, my father's disappointed eyes, the little girl I had once comforted, each moment gnawing at my conscience, carving deeper into the recesses of my heart. And then, amidst it all, I saw the familiar figure, such sorrow laced in every curve of their outline, a reflection I refused to accept. It sparked recognition deep within. They watched as I faltered in my flight, their eyes filled with tangible grief, beckoning me forth. Face us, they called, stretched hands opening as if to bridge the dark gulf between us. Face the truth you've hidden. Stay away. I screamed, filled with rage and terror, knowing that giving my pain a name would bind me to the very memories I feared to relive. At that moment, the shadows seized my limbs, their grip cold as ice, dragging me downward toward a deeper abyss. Darkness blurred and twisted around me, intertwining with memories, threatening to swallow me whole. And then I remembered the pact made in desperation, the choice offered to me amidst my despair. I fought against you. I shouted into the void, the fear of failure igniting fury deep within me as I drew closer to the figure. I choose not to repeat your losses. I choose to break free. The shadows recoiled as if my words struck them, their grip loosening for just a moment, giving me precious time. With every ounce of strength, I broke free from their grasp, rushing toward the light that sparked on the periphery of existence, woven deep into the heart of this dark maze. As I reached the light, the familiar figure flickered, shifting within its brilliance. Don't turn away. It pleaded, its voice threading tension through my spine. This is your battleground, a place to reclaim the shards of soul you've defied. Remember us, I will. I screamed, pushing toward the radiant warmth, letting it flood my senses, drowning out despair long buried beneath the weight of regrets. As I reached it, the energy intensified, blooming dazzlingly, cascading like a waterfall around me, a manifestation of all the love, joy, and sorrow I had fought to bury. I felt the shadows reel back, twisting in agony as the light surged forwards, cutting through the fabric of darkness as I embraced the truth. I saw it then, vivid and heart-wrenching faces of all those I had failed to protect and love, all of them crying out for a reckoning in a chorus that mirrored my own grief. You chose to forget, but we never stopped believing, they cried. Voices resonating like symphonic chords, illuminating my soul with their undying hope, but as the wrestling forces clashed, the grotesque creature made its final act. You think you can destroy what you've created? It howled, the resonance trembling through my bones like an earthquake that could shatter worlds. What I've created. Confusion rippled through me, and there it was, a stark clarity. It was my own weaknesses laid bare, the doubts, the darkest parts of myself that I had refused to confront, the silence I carried after moments of choice I did not make. The spectre urged me on. Now, finally, you understand. It expanded, a tidal wave of light surging from within me, intertwining with the cries of the lost. Only by embracing your truth can you defeat the abyss. With a raw scream, I cast out my truth, pouring it into the world, the joy and sorrow woven together like a vibrant tapestry of life. The darkness writhed, foaming at the edges, furious at my resolve as its hold weakened, but I stood firm, reminding myself of every moment that had taught me that my choices did matter. I am not lost. I shouted. I am a multitude of voices, a creature of light and shadow, a human vessel, reminder that both glory and despair existed together. And with that, I let every ounce of my fear and pain collide with the shadows, all while remembering the faces of those I loved, shouting their names and crafting a field of light powerful enough to break through the chaos. No! Shrieked the abyss as my radiant force surged, crashing against it like waves against the shore, illuminating the darkness with a brilliance that blazed with hope, and then it broke. A flash, a blinding wave of light rush, and I felt myself being sucked back. I was dissolving into particles that entwined, my memories encapsulating, woven with love and loss that filled every space devoid of whispers. I came to consciousness once more in a chill room, walls intact but threads of darkness still fighting to reclaim me. The oppressive air lingered, and shadows flitted along the walls. I was home, yet remembered, my reflection staring back at me through the mirror with newfound strength. Shadows danced at the edges, whispering of the past, but they were dimming, for I now held onto a piece of light, a flicker of truth that not even the dark could swallow, and as I turned away from the mirror, I understood it. Not everything was solved, and the evil still lurked in hidden corners, but I had faced it, wrestled it into the light, and for now, I was unharmed. But even as I left the room, shadows whispered a taunting reminder that they had merely retreated, poised for the moment when my resolve would weaken again. Remember, they murmured softly, chilling enough to clip the wings of hope soaring in my heart, when darkness calls again we shall see how strong you truly are. And with that final chilling echo in my mind, I realized I would never truly be free from the encroaching shadows that lingered. After all, they were part of me now, the burdens of my choices woven into the very fabric of my soul. As I lay down that night, I could feel the weight of the dark still pressing against me. But I chose to breathe, embrace the tumult within, and drift off to sleep, knowing that when the morning came, it wouldn't be the last time I would have to confront the darkness that yearned to take me. And with every breath, I prepared myself for the inevitable, the next choice looming, promising that the darkness had not been vanquished, rather, it had merely retreated to wait. Tomorrow, I whispered, curling my fingers around my heart, readying myself for the dawning of another day. And in that haunting stillness, I heard it, a soft sigh against the quiescent air. See you in your dreams, remember, we will always be waiting.